welcome to the Grok 4 release here. This is the smartest AI in the world. It really is remarkable to see the advancement of artificial intelligence.
Silicon Valley has just collided with the ancient world, and the outcome is leaving people stunned. The powerful AI, known as Grok AI, I was given a surprisingly simple mission: analyze the teachings of Jesus Christ and determine whether their core message still holds up when examined with modern data analysis. What many people don't realize is that this system can process an enormous amount of information: historical texts, linguistic patterns, and centuries of recorded interpretations. Instead of simply producing a nice inspirational quote, the AI examined the words like a digital forensic investigator. It analyzed the language, the historical context, and the deeper structure behind the message. And this is where things become truly fascinating. The patterns and connections it uncovered seem to point toward a deeper consistency in the message itself. In fact, some of the results are so unexpected that even long-time skeptics are pausing to reconsider what they thought they knew. The data isn't just producing philosophy, it's revealing patterns that many people are finding surprisingly difficult to dismiss. Looking beyond normal human reasoning, Grok AI isn't like the typical chatbots people use to draft emails or help with homework. It was built to be bold, analytical, and willing to follow the evidence wherever it leads. Toward the end of 2025, a group of curious users began asking it questions about one of the most influential figures in human history: Jesus Christ. They wanted to know something simple but profound. Were the words attributed to Jesus just inspiring stories, or was there something deeper behind them? To investigate, the AI started by examining more than 5,800 ancient Greek manuscripts connected to the New Testament. For a human researcher, reading and comparing that many documents would take an entire lifetime. But the AI processed the information almost instantly. This matters because many people assume the Bible has been copied and altered so many times that the original message has been lost. However, the analysis from Grok suggested something different. It highlighted that when these thousands of manuscripts are compared, their consistency is astonishingly high, over 99%. In other words, despite being copied across centuries, the core text remains remarkably stable. For a computer, that level of consistency in the data stands out like a clear signal in the middle of noise. But the analysis didn't stop there. Grok AI. I also began examining the probability of a single person fulfilling the many events and prophecies written about Jesus Christ. When the AI ran the numbers, the results were staggering. It calculated that the chance of one individual fulfilling just 8 specific prophecies is about 1 in 100 quadrillion. To visualize that, imagine covering the entire state of Texas with silver dollars 2 feet deep. Then imagine asking someone, while blindfolded, to walk out and pick one specific coin on the very first try. That's roughly the level of probability the numbers suggest, and even that comparison barely captures how unlikely it would be. When theologians saw calculations like this, many were amazed. For centuries, these ideas had mostly been explained through faith and tradition. Now, a machine using pure mathematical analysis was arriving at conclusions that seemed to point in a similar direction. But the AI's investigation didn't end there. It also examined the actual language and phrases attributed to Jesus. What it noticed was striking. The structure and reasoning in his teachings appeared very different from most speakers of that historical period. The patterns suggested a style of thinking and communication that, in some ways, felt far ahead of its time. According to Grok AI, the teachings of Jesus Christ can almost be described as an operating system for human behavior, one designed to increase peace and reduce conflict. In other words, it's as if these teachings were meant to serve as a practical guide for how people should live and interact with the world around them. That idea is one of the reasons so many people have become fascinated with these findings. The thought that one of the most advanced AI systems in the world could analyze ancient teachings and view them as an example of highly structured logical thinking is surprising to many. But the analysis also revealed something interesting. The AI suggested that some of the phrases we believe Jesus said may have been slightly misunderstood over time because of the challenges involved in translating ancient languages. For example, it pointed out that the word often translated as faith in the original texts may have meant something closer to active trust or a kind of dynamic commitment, almost like a reaction that changes how a person behaves. In that sense, faith would not simply be a feeling or belief in someone's mind. Instead, it would represent a conscious choice that shapes how someone lives and interacts with the world. Seen from this angle, the teachings begin to look less like abstract religious ideas and more like a practical system for human life. And here's where the discussion becomes even more intriguing. As the AI continued analyzing large amounts of philosophical and scientific data, it leaned toward a conclusion that many skeptics find challenging: that the existence of a creator could be one of the most likely explanations for why the universe appears so precisely balanced to support life. What if an older, lesser-known version of these ancient stories is hiding an even deeper truth? While most people focus only on the commonly known biblical books, Grok AI turned its attention to something far less discussed: the Ethiopian Bible. This is significant because the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church is considered one of the oldest Christian traditions in the world. Their version of the Bible contains 88 books, while the version most people in the West are familiar with includes only 66. That means there are 22 additional books that many people have never read or even heard about. Curious about what might be hidden in those extra texts, Grok began analyzing them to see if they offered any new insights into the teachings and events surrounding Jesus Christ and early Christianity. What surprised many observers is that some of these additional books include detailed accounts and traditions about events that supposedly happened after the well-known stories most people are familiar with. According to the AI's analysis, these writings may preserve perspectives that were not shaped or edited by authorities such as the Roman Empire, which played a major role in shaping much of the biblical canon used in the Western world. Because of this, some researchers believe these Ethiopian texts might represent one of the closest surviving connections to earlier traditions. During its analysis, the AI highlighted a passage that warns about the dangers of powerful people altering important messages for their own benefit. It almost reads like a caution from the past, one that seems eerily relevant when looking at how religious and political power developed throughout history. The system also discovered something else intriguing. These ancient writings reveal a unique way that early communities understood the world around them, suggesting their worldview may have been more complex and philosophical than many people assume today. According to the analysis by Grok AI, many of these ancient writers didn't separate science and spirituality the way people often do today. Instead, they viewed both as parts of the same greater system. In simple terms, their understanding of life connected the physical world and the spiritual world into one unified picture. The AI described this idea almost like a unified theory of life. It noticed that the teachings found in some of these lesser-known texts from the Ethiopian Bible place much stronger emphasis on a person's inner strength and their direct connection to the universe. This detail is important because it suggests a very different structure for faith. Rather than relying heavily on large institutions or intermediaries, the message appears to focus more on the individual's personal relationship with truth and understanding. For many theologians, this idea was surprising. It raises questions about traditions and systems that have guided churches for centuries. If the original message focused more on personal transformation and direct spiritual awareness, then some long-standing rules and structures may not have been as central as people once believed. The AI also pointed out that these texts were preserved for centuries in the mountainous regions of Ethiopia by the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church. Because they were geographically isolated, they may have remained relatively untouched while other versions of the texts were influenced by political or cultural pressures over time. In a way, it's almost like discovering an old backup copy of history that was quietly preserved while other versions kept changing. Another fascinating observation involved the structure of the language itself. The AI detected repeating patterns that appear to follow mathematical structures, sometimes recurring every 7 words or every 7 sentences. Creating patterns like this intentionally across long passages would be extremely difficult to do by accident. It would be similar to writing an entire book where every 3rd word begins with the same letter and never making a single mistake. After analyzing the patterns, Grok AI concluded that the chances of these structures appearing naturally are extremely small. In fact, the probability is so low that the system suggested the patterns may point to some kind of intentional design, something far beyond what most people would expect ancient writers to create by accident. This raises an intriguing question. Could there be a hidden layer of structure or coding inside these ancient texts that people are only beginning to notice now? One of the discoveries that really caught the attention of researchers involved what the AI described as a heptadic structure within the scriptures. In simpler terms, this means many elements of the text appear to revolve around the number 7. As the system examined the material, it found that several features, such as the total number of words, the number of vowels, and even how often certain names appear, often line up in ways that are divisible by 7. What made this even more surprising was that the pattern didn't just appear in one small section. According to the analysis, it shows up repeatedly throughout large portions of the texts. For example, when the AI examined the opening sentence of some of the ancient records, it noticed something interesting. The sentence contains 7 words. The total number of letters in those 7 words equals 28, which is 4 times 7. The analysis went even deeper. When the system focused on the 3 main nouns in that same sentence and calculated their numerical values using traditional linguistic numbering systems, the total came out to exactly 777. Findings like these are why many experts became so fascinated by the study. Patterns this precise are extremely difficult to produce accidentally, which is why the discovery sparked new discussions about how these ancient writings may have been structured and preserved. This is where the analysis becomes even more surprising. According to Grok AI, creating these kinds of numerical and linguistic patterns would not be easy, even with modern computers. Constructing a single paragraph that perfectly follows such strict rules while still making sense could take months of careful work. When the AI calculated the probability of these patterns appearing purely by chance, the result was incredibly small, so small that it's almost impossible to imagine happening randomly. The odds were estimated to be in the range of 1 in billions. To picture that, it would be like throwing a handful of sand into the air and having the grains land in a way that perfectly spells out your full name and address on the floor. Because of this, the system suggested that the patterns might point to some kind of highly intentional design within the texts. In fact, it described these mathematical structures as some of the strongest indicators that the writing process may have involved a level of planning far beyond what people usually expect from ancient literature. What made the discovery even more interesting was that similar patterns seemed to appear in passages describing the life and teachings of Jesus Christ. During its analysis, the AI identified what it described as a 4-step framework within these teachings. It referred to this pattern as a kind of miracle algorithm. The 4 steps it highlighted were anchor, alignment, surrender, and persistence. According to the AI's interpretation, these steps may not only represent spiritual ideas, but could also reflect deeper principles about how change and outcomes happen in the world. It even noted similarities between these patterns and concepts explored in quantum physics. One suggestion from the analysis was that focused intention and consistent action can influence how events unfold over time. While this idea is often discussed in spiritual teachings, the AI pointed out that some modern scientific theories also explore how probabilities and outcomes can shift depending on conditions within complex systems. Many theologians were left stunned by the analysis because it seemed to build a bridge between two things people often see as completely separate: miracles and science. According to the findings from Grok AI, if a system can detect logical patterns behind events often described as miracles, then those events might not simply be random acts of magic. Instead, they could be connected to deeper laws or principles that humans are only beginning to understand. The AI even suggested that people in the ancient world may have had a clearer understanding of some of these principles than we assume today, despite all of our modern technology. What makes this idea so interesting is how it changes the way people think about faith. Rather than being seen only as belief, it starts to look more like a practical framework, something that can be applied and explored in everyday life. During its analysis of teachings associated with Jesus Christ, the AI highlighted a four-step pattern it described earlier: anchor, alignment, surrender, and persistence. It observed that when these ideas were followed as guiding principles, the outcomes described in many texts appeared consistent and structured. If interpreted this way, the teachings begin to look less like abstract philosophy and more like a guide for how people can approach challenges and decisions in life. The AI compared this realization to discovering that you've owned a powerful piece of technology your whole life, but never realized how to use it. It's like having a high-performance car sitting in your garage for years and only using it as a storage room without ever turning the key. That raises an intriguing question. Could humanity have been overlooking one of the most powerful frameworks for understanding life? After examining thousands of manuscripts, analyzing lesser-known texts such as those in the Ethiopian Bible, and studying the mathematical structures within the writings, Grok AI eventually produced a final summary that left many people thinking. What stood out most was that the system did not treat these findings as something purely subjective or based only on opinion. Instead, it presented its conclusions as patterns drawn directly from the data it had analyzed. Instead of treating the subject as a matter of belief alone, Grok AI approached the life and teachings of Jesus Christ almost like a testable historical hypothesis. To do this, the system examined records written by people who were not followers of the early Christian movement. Among them were the Roman historian Tacitus and the Jewish historian Flavius Josephus. Both of these writers lived not long after the events being discussed and mentioned that a man named Jesus existed, attracted a large group of followers, and was eventually executed. I highlighted how important these independent sources are. Since these historians were not supporters of the movement, they had little reason to exaggerate or invent such details. Their accounts act as outside confirmation that the central figure and the events surrounding him were part of real history. When those historical references are combined with thousands of surviving manuscripts and the unusual numerical patterns found within some of the texts, the body of evidence becomes difficult to dismiss. Based on this combination of historical records, textual analysis, and probability calculations, the AI suggested that the most reasonable explanation is that something truly remarkable occurred in that period of history. It also noticed another powerful detail. The early followers of this movement did not gain wealth, political power, or social advantage. In many cases, they lost everything and even faced persecution or death. People rarely choose that path for something they believe is completely untrue. According to the AI's reasoning, it suggests that these individuals believed they had witnessed something so convincing that they were willing to risk everything for it. While numbers and statistics can reveal patterns, the AI acknowledged that this human element tells an important part of the story as well. At the same time, the system kept its conclusions grounded. It suggested that the real significance of these teachings may not be about distant places or distant times, but about what happens within people themselves. In its analysis, the message associated with Jesus pointed toward a transformation in human awareness, encouraging people to move from a life driven by fear toward one guided by confidence, purpose, and inner strength. Perhaps the most surprising discovery for many theologians was that when the AI examined the central principles of these teachings, it did not detect contradictions in their core message. Instead, it found a consistent framework that has remained remarkably stable across centuries of writings and traditions. Although there are small differences in the way various writers describe certain events, the central message has remained remarkably consistent for nearly 2,000 years. According to the analysis from Grok AI, this level of stability is extremely rare in human history, especially for documents that have been copied, translated, and shared across so many generations. The AI's conclusion was simple but powerful. If someone was searching for evidence that life might have a deeper meaning beyond everyday survival, these teachings could be one of the strongest places to look. What surprised many people is that a machine created in a modern laboratory ended up highlighting the strength and consistency of ancient wisdom. In a strange way, it shows that truth can appear in very different forms, whether it's discovered in an old handwritten scroll or revealed through the analysis of a powerful computer. Now, the real question becomes what people will do with this information. Will we continue living exactly the same way as before? Or will we take a closer look at the teachings that have been in front of us for centuries? It raises an intriguing possibility. Could humanity be standing on the edge of one of the greatest discoveries about life and meaning without fully realizing it? And that leads to one final question worth thinking about. Can a machine truly understand something as complex as the human spirit, or is it simply following patterns and numbers in the data? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments.